Welcome to our presentation, 10 Ways to Improve Your Direct Mail ROI. Hi, I'm Kevin Naughton, President of Printcom. We hope you enjoyed today's session. Want to let you know there's a self-assessment that we recommend using in conjunction with this session. If you received an email with a link to this presentation, there should be a link to the assessment also. If you're finding this on our website, there should be a link to the assessment on the page, the same page as the video. We recommend that you download the assessment and utilize it as we go through the material. Just a little bit of background on Printcom. We've been in business for over 50 years. It's our mission to help our clients do effective and efficient direct mail, print, and integrated media. We're not a seminar company. We're not professional presenters. You'll probably figure that out real quickly. We're just a company that does a lot of direct mail. We're passionate about it, and we want it to work because we know it's important to you that it works. The assessment is a tool we developed to enable our reps to help our clients diagnose areas that could be improved. We decided to make it available to the public. We're going to be using it in this session. Hopefully you can follow along, score yourself, and identify some specific areas where you want to ramp it up. We're going to toss out some thoughts and ideas that correspond with each of the assessment questions. So if you don't rate particularly well in a category, maybe take some notes when we get to that portion. There might be some things in there that could be helpful to you. Without any further ado, we will move on here. Here's what we'll be covering in the session today. There's actually 10 questions on the assessment. We'll kind of go through one by one. On this slide, we're showing 8 areas, and that's because a couple of them, specifically data and the segmentation relevant messaging, there's actually a couple questions devoted to each one of those. So we are going to work through 10 different areas. Okay, let's look at question number 1. If you want to reference the assessment, do you understand and utilize your success metrics, or do you really understand the business case for your direct mail programs? If you do all the time, you'd answer that A, yes, we understand how our direct mail performs and track those metrics. B, we have some understanding of our success metrics but don't track very well. C, we need help understanding in developing our success metrics. You'll see there's point totals associated with every answer in the test. If you want to just answer the question and fill that out, that'd be great. Some of you may have seen an older version where it talked about lifetime value of customer exceeding $5,000. Certainly, if you've got a customer with that kind of value, it's kind of a no-brainer. But we've modified this question because there are valid business cases for other scenarios. So check off how you think you're doing here. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about metrics. We'll give you some metric examples. The fact is, the metrics that matter really depend on whether you're B2B or B2C, can also depend on the size of the sale, how often your customer needs it. Is it a one-time large purchase or is it an ongoing smaller purchase? And then what's the objective? There's 4 basic direct marketing objectives: lead generation, direct sale, loyalty retention, and lead nurturing. So some of the examples we've got listed here are, the first one is the one everyone looks at, overall response. How many people actually respond to the direct mail. That can get tracked different ways. Some people look at coupon redemptions, web visits, phone calls, sample requests, things like that. From that point, though, really the goals can vary based on, really what direct marketing objective. So if you're in a retail environment, you might be doing direct mail to try to get new people into the store, prospecting mail. So new customers acquired would be big for you. And associated with that is, how much does it cost to acquire each new customer? I should, mention, I think this is really a key metric. A lot of folks, when they're constructing their marketing budgets, are really focused on the outbound cost per thousand. But that doesn't really matter nearly as much as how much did it cost to actually get a customer? How many customers did you get on the back end? If you're doing mailings to existing customers, what's your retention rate? There's solid data that shows that retention programs definitely are dollars that are well spent, can produce very good incremental ROI. So what's your retention rate? And what's your annual margin potential for a customer? So you could take those last two, retention rate and annual margin potential, and use that to compute your lifetime customer value, which is another very key metric. Margin after promo. So you look at what your gross margin was off your sale, deduct the promo cost, and understand what net margin is. And then, the gross sale transaction. There's many others other than that. We'd be happy to help you think through metrics, the ones that are relevant for you. Here's a couple illustrations. This is a B2C retail EDDM program. EDDM stands for Every Door Direct Mail, where a retail-oriented business is sending direct mail out. EDDM is really carpet bombing a group of carrier routes or a carrier route. So in the illustration here, this firm has spent $1,100 to send out about 5,000 pieces of EDDM, all in postage and print. They get a 3% total response rate, so they get 150 responses. They get a 1% new customer rate, so 1% of 5,000 is 50. So if you look at it from a cost per response standpoint, you take that $1,100 and divide it by 150, your cost per response was $7.33. If you look at how much, strictly from a new customer standpoint, took the 1,100 and divided by 50, you'd come up with $24. So that's actually allocating all the costs just to the new customers. You might, choose to look at that one a little different, but that's just kind of the way we've done it here. If the annual value of the customer is $500 and, they were going to remain a customer for 4 years, then the lifetime value is $2,000. If the annual margin of that customer is $150, then the annual ROI would be 625%. That's basically arrived at by taking the $150 and dividing by 24. And the lifetime ROI is 2,500%. That's taking that 625 and multiplying it by 4. These are just kind of illustrative numbers. If you're a business owner or a franchisee or something like that, I think if somebody said, hey, if you give us $100, we'll give you back $600, you'd probably think that was a pretty good deal. And I know many of you are dealing on a much grander scale than that, but just illustratively. Another metrics example, relates to the complex sale. So the way we define a complex sale is it's a high dollar value. There potentially could be multiple decision makers. So in the B2C environment, that might be the husband and wife. Hubby wants to buy a new Harley Davidson and he's got to talk mama into letting him spend 30-something thousand bucks on that thing. So there's multiple decision makers. In the B2B environment, it could be multiple individuals in the marketing department who have to sign off on something, or maybe finance and sales and IT have to buy in. So the complex sale involves a high dollar value purchase, multiple decision makers, and because of those two factors, there's a longer selling cycle. It's usually not a spontaneous purchase. It's something where it's going to happen over a prolonged period of time. So this is where lead nurturing becomes very valid. Someone raises a hand, attends a trade show, fills out a web form. You think you've got a lead. Salesperson calls them. They say, hey, we're just doing some research right now. And they probably really are. But if you stay in touch with them over the long haul, you'll convert more of them than if you don't stay in touch with them. So some valid metrics on lead nurturing could be a number of leads generated. Well, that's actually related to lead generation. Cost per lead, annual value of the customer, the lifetime value of the customer, and that's a big metric once again. The lead conversion rate and the lead conversion time frame. So lead gen kind of gets them into the funnel, and then lead nurturing moves them through the funnel. So, big question we ask is, what are you doing to move people through the funnel? A lot of folks say, well, we turn leads over to our sales force, And the data, the data doesn't lie. Relying on salespeople generally doesn't work. I've seen research that says the average salesperson quits after 2 contacts. And Microsoft, in a study they performed, said the average complex sale doesn't happen until after the 11th contact. So nurturing involves use of marketing automation tools that send out prescribed messages. Many times there's decision tree type thought processes, landing pages. So, a metric that would correlate with nurturing would be what's your conversion rate without nurturing, and what is it with nurturing, and maybe, what are the stats in each funnel step. Okay, question number 2. Prospective customers in various segments typically have varying needs and concerns. Have you identified the drivers associated with each segment? A, yes, we've done that and have implemented them into our direct mail. B, yes, we've done that, but we haven't implemented them into our direct mail. C, no, we haven't done that. There's no doubt it's been proven one-to-one messaging. In other words, talking to people on a very relevant level creates lift. There's really 3 components to the concept of relevance. The first one is timing. You could send a good offer at the wrong time and it won't work because people aren't in the buy mode. For instance, you can put out school clothes, back to school offers in May and it won't work. Some of those really cheap deals on electronics and stuff hatched in July when people are on vacation wouldn't work, but they sure work great on Black Friday. Timing matters. If you're in the market for auto service, it works best if the coupon shows up right at the time you need service, and honestly the auto service guys have really figured it out. Seasonality also has to be taken into account. There's certain things that are going to get purchased on a seasonal basis, and there's no offer that's going to change that. Relevance, are the offer and messaging right for the audience, which is closely related to personalization, and that's way more than name personalization. Name personalization really has been around, for 15 to 20 years and has kind of lost its charm. For personalization to really work now, it has to, have offers that matter to people, and different offers matter. Like what I buy when I go to the grocery store is what is different than what my wife buys when she goes. What a woman would need at a store would be different than, a teenager or something like that. So can the offers, the content, the images, the products be tailored to the individual or the segment? Admittedly, this is easier to do with customers because most firms have more data on their customers, especially if they have a good POS system that tracks purchase behavior on an individual level, because the activity can be analyzed. Number 3, can your mailing list data be segmented to enhance relevance? Yes, we already employ relevance principles. B, yes, we have the data to support segmentation, but we haven't utilized it. No, my data does not facilitate segmentation. The stats, some stats from the Direct Marketing Association and PODI say that segmentation can create 2 to 5 times lift in campaign performance. So we've got a few examples listed here. Gender, the way I sell a car to a female might be different than the way I sell a car to a male. The products or the way they're talked about are a little bit different. Vertical markets or buyer buckets. So in our business, we deal a lot with franchisees. We deal a lot with companies that work with building suppliers, and we deal with higher ed. And they've all got, different things they care about. So it's, if the pieces can speak to their individual needs, they're going to work way better than if we have generic pieces going out. Buyer buckets. So let me talk about that for a sec. Let's say you're a hotel. You might have several types of customers: leisure travelers, business travelers, travel agents, and meeting planners. All of them have different buttons that should be spoken to. You can segment by buying behavior, ownership type. For instance, is the person a dog owner or a cat owner if you're a pet store? Are they a big SUV purchaser? Are they, a tourist purchaser, or some kid right out of college that's going to buy, a smaller compact car? Are they a big spender versus a price shopper? Back to the lead nurturing thought process by funnel stage, you might talk to somebody differently who's already obtained a quote from you than you would someone who just requested literature. Offers based on need or purchase behavior. Certainly another case for segmentation or versioning is dealer information or brick and mortar location. So, if you've got stores or franchisees all over the country, then you want relevant maps or contact info on their phone numbers, store addresses, that sort of thing. And, timing tied to past purchase patterns. This is another thing where the car folks are really good at it. Like they can analyze because they've got data, they scan your VIN number when you come in and they record this like, okay, they came in 3 months ago and they came in 6 months ago and they came in 9 months ago. So they know basically you're coming in every 3 months. They're going to lob an offer out at you about 2.5 right as you're getting ready to need another one. And another thing that might happen would be, let's say now you miss it at your 3-month interval and you're like a week or two past. Now they might throw a lapsed customer offer at you to, make sure you don't go to somebody else's shop. Number 4, mailing data is typically run through NCOA. NCOA is an acronym for National Change of Address database, which the Postal Service operates. This process will create a list of updated addresses and a list of bad addresses. So the question is, do you migrate this data back into your database? One of the outcomes of going through NCOA is that a list of corrected addresses will be produced and a list of bad addresses will be produced. So A, yes, we do migrate the data back into our database. B, yes, we do migrate the database or data back into our database, but not on a regular basis. C, no, we haven't been doing that. So take a second and answer that question. So let's talk about the impact of poor hygiene practices. I will say there's a lot of people out there producing direct mail for the enterprises and franchises who never feed back corrected address files and bad address files. And so the client's database is never updated. And there are some serious ramifications to this. First of all, when a person gets ready to move, a consumer, they fill out a slip and it goes into this National Change of Address database. Now, we as mailers, when we get ready to mail, if we want to qualify your mail for the lowest rates, the automation rates, then we're required to submit your database to the National Change of Address database so the addresses can be updated. The mail doesn't have to be forwarded a lot. It just gets to the right person. So USPS estimates that 17% of the U.S. population changes address annually. I mean, that's people moving from one town to the next or moving from a smaller house into a bigger house or downsizing or any one of a number of conditions. 17%, that's, roughly 1 out of 6 people moves annually. Now, what happens is there's what's called an 18-month file where the addresses are changed or maintained from the time the form was filled out for 18 months. So we've actually seen situations where because that bad address data wasn't fed back into the database and updated, like there will come a certain point where that address is no longer updatable. And now you're mailing to people who don't live there anymore. Getting customers is hard. You want to stay in touch with them. So some people, some mailers, their answer to that is to slap "or current resident" on the piece. And that will get it to the address, but it won't necessarily get it the person. So the moral of the story is if you don't update, you're going to lose contact with your customers. We've actually seen situations where like 20% of the client's database was actually no longer relevant. Now there are some hygiene steps we can perform to get some of those addresses back, but the bottom line is the focus of today's session is how to improve your ROI. So if 20% of your pieces are going to the wrong people, that's definitely going to harm your ROI. You're going to be printing too much and you're going to be spending too much on postage. So this might sound like sacrilege coming from a print firm, but we'd rather see the optimal scenario is we really want to see you keep your addresses clean so it gets to the right people. But if the addresses are bad, we'd rather see the print quantities get reduced and the cost reduced so your ROI stays high. Okay, question number 5. Good direct mail begins with a good offer. Have you A/B tested your offers? A/B testing, for those of you that may not be familiar with it, a lot of folks do it like with their Google AdWords accounts and like with messaging they're using in their web pages, like in their meta tags and that sort of thing. But people don't necessarily do it all the time with their direct mail offers. We highly recommend this. Testing is wonderful. So how do you answer that question? A, yes, we do that regularly. B, it's been a while since we did that. C, no, we don't do that. So A/B testing takes your marketing out of the realm of going with your gut instincts and provides you with, hard statistical information that you can use about your customer base and, what they think is valuable. And that's really what matters. Sometimes, when we as marketers kind of live in our own little boxes, we can make guesses that aren't necessarily, accurate. I think one of the things about A/B testing also is it kind of is very liberating from the standpoint that, if you've been using an offer and you haven't tested another one, you might be afraid to change because you won't know how the other one really would do against it. And so we really feel like it promotes some experimentation that could lead to improvement in offer response, which can lead to an increase in revenue. And you can do A/B testing on many different levels. Certainly we're talking about, offers can be tested, but also messaging, do the headlines or the text, changing them out. Does that create lift? The creative, the way it looks, the images that are used, packages. So when we talk about a package, we're talking about, is it a postcard? Is it a self-mailer? Or is it a, like a letter envelope package, maybe with brochures tucked in? And even, within the context of letter envelope packages, there's lots of permutations on that, So it makes sense to test all of that. Landing pages, the next step for a lot of folks in responding to direct mail is go to the web. It's not necessarily pick up the telephone and call a salesperson. A lot of folks are going to break out in a rash thinking about that. So the next step for a lot of folks is go to the web. Landing pages are awesome because it lets you kind of keep track on the activity and it lets you have content that's like really focused on the objective in the piece. So you can test the landing pages too. And there's just a lot of other things you can test. Not too much at once though. Just kind of change out a variable or two at a time so you can kind of see how each variable impacts. Question number 6. Measuring ROI is critical to assessing direct mail performance. How well are you able to track the results of your direct mail efforts? A, very well. B, not very well. C, we don't track results. Tracking results. Wow, one of the best, most awesome ways to track results is and this is really kind of a retail function primarily, if you've got POS data where you can associate purchases with individuals, because then you can just look at the purchase data and, there's all kinds of stuff you can do with it. We find a lot of times, when there aren't real good tracking systems in place, people kind of rely on their recollection of what foot traffic is. The other thing, about POS data is there are people going to be influenced by direct mail, won't necessarily bring a coupon in or present a coupon, but they come in and if you run, control groups where you mail some folks and don't mail others, you cannot, you can kind of assess, how many people came in. I'm kind of alluding to that in the 4th bullet point, so I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but POS data is just awesome. You can utilize unique SKUs or PLUs like in coupons, great idea. You can use landing pages to track links, site visits, goal completions. We've done a lot of personal URL campaigns. Those are really awesome for direct mail, where basically you put a personalized URL on the piece. That's the URL the person uses to go to the web, and now you know who's responding to the direct mail because they're using a personal URL. There's a lot of other really cool benefits about personal URLs, but that's a huge one. But this fourth bullet point, I do want to elaborate a little bit on this one. Assessing the impact of direct mail touches on web visits, word of mouth, etc., with and without direct mail. So I'll share like our own story. We'd actually ramped down some direct mail in an area of our business as we weren't necessarily seeing the results on that we wanted to. But then we were tracking like some of our website visit behavior. We run AdWords campaigns and we do SEO, and we have some referral stuff, and there's just a variety of things we're tracking as far as web visits go. Well, we noticed our direct entry traffic started dropping off, and we reinstated some of the direct mail programs, and the direct entry traffic is started picking back up. So you got to look at the whole picture, big picture. Word of mouth is another huge issue. You know, one of the things that can happen when you send direct mail to somebody, if it's a good offer and they know people that could also benefit from the offer, they will tell their neighbors or their friends or their relatives about the offer, the event, or whatever it is you're trying to get them to do. And so you actually get some you get some viral activity. And actually, that could be kind of considerable. I know we did some event marketing for a group a couple of 3 years back, and we were doing some survey data, and word of mouth was actually cited as the marketing tactic that got them to the event more than anything else. Direct mail was second. Okay, number 7. What is the source of your data? What are you using for data? Number 1, we have a recent list of profiled prospects. That's a really good one. B, we utilize data from our CRM or point of sale system. That's another really good one. C, we used a list we purchased a while ago. Well, not so red hot. We said it before, we'll say it again. As far as the data you're using to mail with, POS data, if you've got it, is awesome. We love to see people do good data mining. We can help with that if you're not familiar with it. And the availability of POS data is like the reason that loyalty retention mail-ins are highest, you know, as far as any of the direct marketing objectives. And that's because you've got just all kinds of buyer insights, you know, related to their purchase activity. And then you can start using recency, frequency, monetary principles. That's RFM, where, you know, like if you look at all the transactions associated with an individual, you can really get a feel for what they buy, when they buy it, how often they buy it. And, you know, if you really want to get wild and crazy, you can, you know, start doing some triggered stuff too, where you look at, okay, because they bought this, they might be a candidate for this also. So POS data is totally awesome. Known purchaser lists or co-op databases. This might be an option for some of you in the retail space. So there's a condition to these. This is, you can actually buy data on people that buy products like in supermarkets and stuff like that. But co-op databases are, as they imply, you have to contribute your data to get some data. So they're not going to necessarily tell you what store somebody bought in. And I've talked to a few of these companies. They typically want to have at least 10 or 11 companies out of a segment before they will really start selling data into that segment, you know, because they don't want to allow this to happen. Let's just pretend you're in the auto parts business. If you're O'Reilly's, they're not just going to sell you AutoZone's customer list. But if they've got, you know, 9 or 10 auto parts, you know, maybe Napa and some other folks in there, and they've got it big enough where you can't really tell where the folks came from, then they'll do that, but you got to give them your data. The last one is profiled prospect data, which involves a process called modeling. And this can be very effective in prospect mailing. You just got to have a great offer. But the point behind profiling or modeling is, you know, really what you're trying to do is weed out all the people that don't look like your customers or buyers and mail just to people that look like them from a data statistical standpoint. And by getting rid of as much chaff as you can, you know, your ROI is better because there's not as much, you know, as much chaff involved and more wheat involved. That's something we're happy to talk to you about too if it's of interest to you. I do want to say something here. Data like every other variable, should be tested. We really recommend to our clients that they test different databases, different offers. And I know we have a lot of folks we talk to in the franchise space. I will tell you, like, the golden rule of franchisee participation is high success rates. Your people don't want to spend money on marketing unless they know it's like shooting fish in the barrel. So test, and find out which variables impact the results in ROI the best, and then roll the campaign out to everybody. Okay, question number 8. Postage is typically an expensive direct mail component. When was the last time you had a postage analysis performed? In the last 6 months? In the last 12 months? Or more than 12 months or never? Here's one of the things we see. We see a lot of folks invest a lot of time and energy into going out and getting competitive print bids, maybe 2 or 3 people, and they never really analyze what the postage is going to cost. Now, I do lots of programs where the postage costs 2 to 5 times more than the print and mail cost. So I would recommend working with somebody that's able to, really help you analyze what your postage costs are. Because there might be ways you can save money. There might be areas where you're wasting money. So here's some things to check for. The first one we've kind of alluded to earlier, but it's bad addresses. If you're sending pieces to people who aren't buyers, your ROI is lower than it should be. One of the things we will offer, if anybody wants to, we're willing to perform postage analysis free of charge, no obligation, just to maybe show you how we could help you in this area. Another thing to look for, people who have moved outside of market. Back to that NCOA process. It's going to correct some of the addresses, and there's probably going to be some it can't correct. Person didn't fill out a slip, it's expired, whatever. But let's say you go through that address correction step, and let's say you've got a franchisee or a dealer or, whatever, your firm operates in a certain geographic area, and now that person's moved outside of the area. What's the chances that they're going to be able to come back and shop or buy from you? If the chances are low, then you might want to look at weeding some of those folks out. I mean, we've gone through this process with some folks and actually seen, 4% of their addresses are outside of market. There's an ROI bump right there. If you either reassign them to a different location, if you've got a mechanism for doing that, or drop them from the mailing list. And then this last bullet talks about the concept of postal logistics. So really what postal logistics is instead of just having the mail entered at the post office that's in proximity to the printer or mailer, sometimes it makes sense to truck it to one of the bulk mail centers that's in proximity to the recipients. If you truck mail for the post office, when I say you, if you have your mailer do some trucking for them, they're going to give you a lower piece entry rate. So the variable that you always have to weigh is the cost to send it via freight to that other location. Let's say, our company's in Flint, Michigan, and we have a client that's got a bunch of locations in the Dallas, Texas area. Our software will look at where does it make sense to truck it to, so we can get the cheaper entry rates. So maybe instead of spending 27, 28 cents a piece on postage, now you're spending 23 or something like that. So that's something really to look at real hard. The general rule of thumb we use is if there's more than 15,000 pieces of mail going to a particular metro area, it makes sense to look and enter in the mail closer to the recipient. We have seen some pretty dramatic, savings for customers by doing this. Number 9, direct mail projects can be very complicated and time-consuming. How would you assess your organization's ability to execute direct mail projects? We have sufficient internal resources and expertise. We have some expertise but limited bandwidth and need to rely on outside resources. C, our internal resources are very limited. We need help. So here's some areas where some outside help might be able to benefit you. And I'm really not trying to turn this into a dog and pony show. But there is a reason where companies like Printcom, are helpful. And having said that, not all mailers are created equally. Most organizations don't have the bandwidth or expertise on every direct marketing topic, so that's one issue. Most excel at one or two. So it can be, pretty helpful to have a trusted partner who can help you navigate all the issues. I put first class postage on the top of the list because this is an area where there's significant ROI improvement potential for a lot of companies. I see first class postage getting used way too often because the mail went out later than it should have. And it went out later than it should have because there weren't good, tight schedules put together that were adhered to. So, working with someone that can help you really manage the project, keep it on track so you don't have to pay for first class postage, that can be big. I mean, generally speaking, first class postage, like on a post, not a first class card, but like a letter rate postcard, maybe like a 6x9 or a 6x11, something like that. Doing that piece first class versus standard can be about a 12 or 13 cent a piece difference. Another area where outside help can benefit you is just the whole idea of trying to coordinate in-home dates with the postal realities to ensure timely delivery. Good schedules, are a must. So real world, the farther away the recipient is from wherever the mail is entered, the longer it's going to take to get there. And then there are, certain times of year where there's seasonal crushes at the post office. Mail going from Michigan and California is going to take longer than mail going from Michigan to somewhere else in Michigan. So that should all get factored in the scheduling, and somebody that's really competent can help you do that so pieces aren't getting there too early or too late. Another area, outside direct marketing expertise can bring ideas to explore that you may not think of on your own. We work with a lot of different folks, and certainly we don't want to violate any confidences or non-competes, marketing strategy of competitors, anything like that. But like sometimes we see some best practice stuff that we are able to share, and others can do the same thing. This is another big one. Sophisticated firms, have some technologies that greatly simplify the process and, present some possibilities that you might not have on your own. I'll give you one example here. Our firm does a lot of every door direct mail, EDDM, and we do it, for hundreds of locations a month. So we actually we're applying for a patent on our software that will automatically select the routes closest to every brick and mortar location. For any of you that have ever done that before, it can take 15, 20 minutes a store to pick the routes, and if you have to do that every time for a few hundred stores, it can take a lot of time. And our software can do it, basically in a couple, 3 hours and generate all the paperwork. So that's a situation where somebody could save a lot of time and a lot of money by working with somebody that's got, a technology. The other big application I would say here is there's some really wonderful automation tools available that we have, others have, or that have been developed, programmatically that just make things go way simpler, big time savers. Okay, number 10, it's increasingly important that creative be able to cut through the clutter. How confident are you that your pieces can do that? A, very confident our creative is strong. B, somewhat confident, but we would benefit from a review or outside perspective. C, not confident. It would be helpful if someone with a strong direct marketing background provided insight. Okay, so people are inundated with advertising messages nowadays. The web, Facebook, TV, magazines, direct mail, the newspaper. Every media channel has lots of advertising. So what really jumps out? Well, relevant stuff jumps out, back to the relevant, like the stuff that I care about jumps out to me. But, when you start talking about, cutting through the clutter, this is another area where some outside help can seriously improve performance. The biggest piece of advice we would give here is start with the offer. The offer is what will really grab people's attention more than the color palette or package or cool graphics. So make a proven good offer the focus. And I see it actually done in reverse quite often. It's like people will spend a lot of time on the creative, and it's kind of like, okay, the offer gets hatched almost as an afterthought at the back end. The offer is what are going to get people to move. Direct response copywriting. I want to speak to that for a second. This is probably a good place to ask for professional help. This is different than writing for branding. Most agencies are brand oriented. I haven't got anything against agencies. We have several as customers. If you're using an agency, just make sure they have a strong direct marketing background, and whoever is writing copy, really has a direct response orientation. Writing for response is different than writing for brand awareness. Another thing I would say here is there are situations where long copy really works good. I remember one of the books I read a long time ago was Ogilvy on Advertising by David Ogilvy, and he was a real proponent of long copy. He said, hey, a lot of people aren't going to read it, but the people that are interested, they're going to read it. And so I've seen some very effective long copy approaches used. I've got a friend who does a lot of work for some AAA affiliates, and they're using a lot of long copy letter envelope packages, brochures and all that stuff. And I don't want to read all that, but the people that want to sign up for their road service programs and discounts and all that, they really want to understand, what they're getting as part of that. So that's an example where long copy works. As far as B2B, so this is kind of a universal truth on B2B. It has to be coupled with phone calls. So if you're going to do B2B direct mail, just make sure you've got a telemarketing group or Salesforce or somebody marketing team that can make some phone calls. The way we look at it, direct mail is kind of like the artillery. You send the shells in to soften up the beach, and then you send the troops in. And so you send the direct mail in and create kind of some brand awareness, particularly for those of you that maybe aren't top of mind. The direct mail can create almost, some branding awareness, and the salespeople then, kind of reinforce that. The other thing I would say is it takes repetition. With respect to B2B also, the positioning you're targeting is going to drive the approach. If I'm trying to make a CEO sale, then I'm probably not going to send in a self-mail or a postcard. It's probably going to be a nice looking letter envelope package that looks expensive, maybe an invitation type format, versus if I'm selling office supplies to the office manager, which really are, small catalog setups. We've actually got a B2B offer matrix that I'm willing to share with anybody if they want to request it, that kind of talks about some of the different types of offers that can be offered in the B2B realm, and the quantity and quality of leads that you can get from each tactic. Back to creative that cuts through the clutter. This is just another area where testing is just critical. I've seen letter envelope packages with compelling headlines on the envelopes that worked really well, and I've seen programs where they didn't even put a logo on the outside of the envelope. It all looked personally generated with a stamp on the inside, on the outside rather than a permit. So those are just things to test what works in your world. Okay, so there are the mugs of myself. I'm the bald dude on the right, and my name's Kevin Naughton. I'm the owner of the company, president. And on the left is Steven. He's my older son. He's in our new business development effort. Really sharp young man. He dual majored in marketing and finance. Either one of us are happy to talk to you. If you just want some help, some advice, want to start looking at some things, this is the sort of thing we love to do. Steve's contact information is there on the slide, as is mine. We'd love to chat with you. What I would recommend you do now on that assessment is total up all those points, and there's a key down at the bottom that you can kind of use to rate yourself. Take a look at it. If you feel like you need some help, now you'll notice that there's some areas where probably your direct mail can be improved, and if you're looking for some ideas, we'd love to talk to you. So thanks for listening today. Take care.